This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're examining one of the most dangerous relationship dynamics a man can find himself in, and one that most men don't recognize until catastrophic damage has already been done. You're dating a narcissist, or married to one, or recovering from one, and the reason it took you so long to recognize what was happening is because society has conditioned you to believe that narcissism is primarily a male problem, that narcissistic women are rare exceptions rather than increasingly common realities in modern dating. That conditioning is wrong, and it's costing men everything. Female narcissism is epidemic. It's being created systematically by social media, by cultural messaging that tells women they're special and deserve constant validation, by the dating market dynamics that give women overwhelming abundance of options and minimal accountability. And the damage female narcissists do to the men who love them is profound, lasting, and often invisible to outside observers who see the beautiful facade without understanding the psychological destruction happening behind it. Today we're doing a complete diagnostic examination of female narcissism. What defines a narcissist versus someone who is just difficult or self-centered? The specific characteristics that female narcissists exhibit. How to recognize narcissism early before you're entangled. What gaslighting actually looks like and why it's one of the most damaging tactics narcissists use. What happens when two narcissists date each other. And what you can actually do if you're already in a relationship with a narcissistic woman. This is not theory. This is pattern recognition based on clinical psychology and the lived experience of thousands of men who have survived narcissistic relationships and are trying to help other men avoid the same destruction. Stay with me. This might be the most important diagnostic guide you ever encounter, defining narcissism beyond she's selfish. Let me start by establishing what narcissism actually is, because the term gets thrown around so casually that it's lost diagnostic precision. Narcissism is not someone being selfish occasionally, someone wanting things their way, someone being vain about their appearance, someone having confidence. These are normal human traits that everyone exhibits to varying degrees. Narcissism is a cluster of specific, persistent, pathological traits that fundamentally impair a person's ability to have genuine relationships, feel empathy, regulate emotions, or see reality accurately. The core 6 characteristics all must be present, according to Dr. Ramani Durvasula, one of the leading clinical psychologists specializing in narcissism. You need to see all 6 of these core characteristics consistently to diagnose someone as narcissistic. 1. Lack of empathy. This is foundational. The narcissist cannot genuinely feel or care about what other people are experiencing emotionally. She can intellectually understand that you're hurt or struggling, but she doesn't feel compassion or concern. Your pain doesn't register as something that matters. In practice, you tell her about something difficult you're going through. Her response is either dismissive, you're overreacting, redirects to herself, that's nothing, let me tell you about my day, or she becomes angry that you're burdening her with your emotions. Entitlement, she expects special treatment as her baseline. Rules that apply to other people don't apply to her. Accommodations that she demands from you are not reciprocated. She deserves the best table at the restaurant, the best seat, the most attention, special consideration, while others deserve ordinary treatment. In practice, she cuts in line, demands exceptions, expects you to drop everything for her needs while her availability for your needs is minimal, operates from the assumption that her preferences are more important than yours or anyone else's. Grandiosity has an inflated sense of her own importance, capabilities, or specialness. She's not just good at things, she's exceptional. She's not just attractive, she's the most beautiful woman in the room. Her problems are more significant, her achievements more impressive, her insights more valuable than anyone else's. In practice, she dominates conversations talking about herself. She name drops constantly. She needs to be the center of attention. She becomes uncomfortable or hostile when attention shifts away from her. She exaggerates her accomplishments or fabricates achievements to maintain the grandiose self-image. Superficiality and obsession with appearance. The narcissist is obsessed with how things look rather than how things are. Appearance matters more than substance. She cares intensely about her physical appearance, about being seen with the right people, about her social media presentation, about the visible markers of status and success. In practice, she spends enormous time and money on appearance. She's more concerned with how your relationship looks to others than with how it actually feels. She judges people harshly based on appearance, weight, age, attractiveness. She's mortified if you embarrass her publicly, even in minor ways. Poor emotional regulation, cannot handle frustration, disappointment, or criticism without disproportionate emotional response. Small setbacks trigger rage. Minor criticism creates emotional meltdown. Not getting her way immediately results in tantrums. Adult tantrums that might be verbal rather than physical, but are tantrums nonetheless. In practice, you're walking on eggshells constantly because you never know what minor thing will trigger an explosion. She goes from calm to furious in seconds over things that don't warrant that reaction. She cannot self-soothe. Her emotional state is always someone else's responsibility to manage. Hypersensitivity to criticism and feedback, even constructive, even gentle, is experienced as a profound attack. She cannot receive criticism without becoming defensive, angry, or turning it around on you. The idea that she might be wrong, might need to improve, might have made a mistake, this is intolerable to her. In practice, you cannot raise concerns about her behavior without it becoming a massive conflict. She reframes all criticism as you being mean, controlling, unsupportive. She counterattacks by listing your flaws rather than addressing the actual issue you raised. If all 6 of these are present consistently, not occasionally, but as stable patterns of her personality, you're dealing with a narcissist. The extended characteristics, the broader pattern beyond the core 6, narcissists typically exhibit many additional characteristics that create the complete toxic profile. Jealousy and envy is threatened by other people, success, happiness, or good fortune. If you achieve something, instead of being proud of you, she's threatened. If another woman is attractive or successful, instead of being indifferent, she's envious and hostile. This manifests as her subtly undermining your achievements, being unable to celebrate your wins, bad-mouthing other women constantly, needing to be the most successful, attractive, accomplished person in any context. Or gaslighting will cover this extensively. She systematically denies your perception of reality to make you doubt yourself. This is one of the most psychologically damaging tactics narcissists use, and deserves its own section. Loyalty requires caring about someone beyond what they can do for you in the moment. Narcissists don't have that capacity. She'll throw you under the bus if it serves her. She'll share your private information if it gets her attention or sympathy. She'll turn on you the moment someone else seems more valuable to her. Sadism, taking pleasure in others' suffering, she enjoys seeing people hurt or humiliated. Not just indifferent, actively pleased. She laughs at people's pain. She creates situations where people will be embarrassed. She tells stories about others' failures or humiliations with glee. This might be subtle, framed as just joking or just telling a funny story, but underneath is genuine pleasure in others' misery. Meanness and cruelty she's mean. To service workers, to people she perceives as beneath her, to you when you're vulnerable. There's a baseline cruelty in how she treats people that she often disguises as honesty or high standards, but that's actually just meanness. Manipulation and lying truth is optional. She manipulates situations and people to get what she wants. She lies casually when lying serves her purposes. She creates narratives that paint her favorably regardless of accuracy. Your reality? Other people's reality. These are subordinate to the reality she's constructing. Lack of genuine relationships. Look at her friendships. Are they deep, long-lasting, reciprocal? Or are they shallow, transactional, constantly cycling through new people as old friends become disillusioned? Narcissists cannot maintain genuine relationships because relationships require empathy, reciprocity, and caring about someone beyond what they provide you. They have acquaintances, admirers, people they use, but not real friends. Gaslighting, the most damaging narcissistic tactic. Let me explain gaslighting specifically because it's the psychological weapon that does the most damage to men in relationships with narcissistic women. Gaslighting is the systematic denial of your reality in ways that make you question your own perception, memory, and sanity. What gaslighting looks like in practice: denying things she said. You're having a conflict about something hurtful she said 2 days ago. You bring it up: when you said X, that really hurt me. Her response: I never said that. You're making that up. You're remembering wrong. You know she said it. You remember clearly. But her absolute confidence in denying it makes you start doubting your own memory. Did I misunderstand? Did I remember wrong? Am I being unfair? That doubt is the goal. The more you doubt your own perception, the more power she has to define reality. Denying your emotions are valid, you express hurt, disappointment, frustration about something she did. Her response: you have no right to feel that way, or you're being too sensitive, or you're overreacting. She's not disagreeing with your interpretation of events. She's denying that your emotional response to events is legitimate. She's telling you that you're wrong for feeling what you feel. Over time, you stop trusting your own emotional responses. You start questioning. Am I too sensitive? Am I overreacting? Maybe I'm the problem. Rewriting history, she describes past events completely differently than you remember them. Or not just different perspective, fundamentally different facts. And she's so confident in her version that you start questioning yours. We agreed to that. You definitely didn't. You said you were fine with this. You explicitly said you weren't. That never happened. It absolutely did. Over time, you start relying on her to tell you what's real because you no longer trust your own memory or perception. Creating confusion about what actually happened, she does something clearly wrong. You address it. And somehow by the end of the conversation, you're apologizing to her and you're not even sure how that happened. The facts got twisted, the narrative got redirected, and suddenly you're the bad guy. Why gaslighting is so destructive? Gaslighting destroys your ability to trust yourself. If you can't trust your own memory, your own perception, your own emotional responses, what can you trust? You become dependent on external validation of reality. And if that external validation is coming from the person gaslighting you, you're completely under their control. Men who have been gaslit extensively describe feeling like they're going crazy. They feel unstable, uncertain, like they can't trust their own minds. This is not weakness. This is the designed outcome of a sustained psychological attack on your sense of reality. Dr. Ramani says, if you feel like you need to voice record your conversations with your partner so you can play them back to prove what was actually said, you're being gaslit. And if you're at that point, it's time to exit the relationship. What happens when two narcissists date each other? This is fascinating from a clinical perspective and instructive for understanding narcissistic dynamics. When two narcissists date, it's essentially a psychological cage match. Nobody's empathic, nobody's listening, nobody actually cares about the other person beyond what they provide. Why it works initially, both narcissists care intensely about appearance. They want a partner who looks good because that makes them look good. So initially, they can deliver on that. They present well together. They're both focused on the aesthetic of the relationship. They create the appearance of a perfect couple. It's all facade. They're not actually connecting. They're both playing parallel games, using each other as props in their individual narratives. Why it inevitably explodes the first time one narcissist frustrates the other, doesn't provide the validation they need, doesn't accommodate their preferences, doesn't make them look good. The entire structure collapses because there's no empathy, no genuine care, no foundation of actually valuing the other person. When conflict arises, neither person can regulate, both escalate, both demand to be right, neither will accommodate. It becomes warfare, spectacular, destructive warfare, where both parties are deploying every narcissistic weapon against each other. Dr. Ramani's recommendation, let the narcissists all interbreed. Get them out of the normal dating supply. Just don't let them reproduce. Can two narcissists who recognize they're narcissists make it work? Dr. Ramani has worked with clients who admit, I'm a narcissist, I know it. I can see how it's affecting my relationships, and I want to do the work. Those relationships still don't succeed, because even with self-awareness, the core deficits remain. The lack of empathy doesn't suddenly appear because you recognize you lack it. The poor emotional regulation doesn't improve just because you acknowledge it exists. Narcissism is a personality structure, not a behavior you can simply choose to change. Some narcissists can learn to manage their behavior better, to recognize patterns and interrupt them. But the fundamental narcissistic core remains. And two people operating from that core cannot build genuine partnership. How to recognize you're dating a narcissist before it's too late. Let me give you practical, diagnostic questions and observations that help you identify narcissism. Early diagnostic question 1. How does she treat people who can't help her? Watch how she treats service workers, waiters, baristas, retail employees, people she perceives as lower status, people who are struggling or vulnerable, anyone who cannot provide her with something valuable. If she's rude, dismissive, cruel, or simply indifferent to these people, that's who she is underneath the performance. She's nice to you now because you're providing something she values. The moment you stop providing it or someone better comes along, you'll receive the treatment these other people are getting. Diagnostic question 2. Can she take responsibility when she's wrong? Test this early, not by creating conflicts, but by observing what happens when she makes a mistake, when she hurts you unintentionally, when circumstances require her to acknowledge she was wrong about something. Can she say, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I'll do better, without defensiveness, without deflection, without counterattacking? Or does she deny she was wrong, blame circumstances, blame you for how you responded, turn it into a conflict about your character rather than her behavior? A person who cannot take accountability for being wrong cannot sustain a healthy relationship. If this incapacity shows up early, it will be there forever. Diagnostic question 3. Does she have long-term reciprocal friendships? Ask about her friendships. How long has she known her close friends? Are these relationships reciprocal? Do they help each other, support each other? Or are they one-directional with her receiving most of the support? Has she had a pattern of friendships ending dramatically? Lots of stories about former best friends who betrayed her or showed their true colors. Narcissists cannot maintain long-term reciprocal friendships because friendship requires empathy and caring about someone beyond what they do for you. If she doesn't have any friendships that have lasted years and are genuinely reciprocal, that's a warning sign. Diagnostic question. 4. How does she respond when you're vulnerable? At some point early in the relationship, be vulnerable with her about something. Share something you're struggling with. Express hurt about something. Show her that you have needs and emotions. Does she respond with empathy? Does she listen, validate, support? Or does she minimize what you're sharing, redirect to herself, become irritated that you're being needy, dismiss your feelings as invalid? A woman who cannot respond to your vulnerability with empathy and care is showing you who she is. Believe her. Diagnostic question 5. Are you starting to doubt your own perception? If you find yourself questioning whether things she said actually happened, feeling like you're too sensitive or overreacting constantly, wondering if you're remembering conversations correctly, needing to second-guess your own emotional responses, feeling confused about what's real after interactions with her, you're being gaslit, and gaslighting is a core narcissistic tactic. This alone is reason to exit. What to do? If you're already in a relationship with a narcissist, this is the hardest section because the answer is uncomfortable. If you're in a committed relationship, especially marriage, with a genuine narcissist, your options are limited and mostly bad. Option 1. Exitus is the recommendation from every expert on narcissistic relationships. Get out. The relationship is psychologically toxic. It will not get better. The damage will compound over time. Every day you stay, recovery becomes harder. If you're not married, don't have children, don't have major entanglement, exit immediately. Do not try to fix her. Do not give her more chances. Do not hope that your love will transform her. It won't. Narcissism is a personality structure, not a behavior that changes because someone loves you enough. If you're married or have children, exit is more complicated but may still be the right choice. Consult with a therapist who specializes in narcissistic abuse. Consult with a divorce attorney. Document everything. And recognize that staying may be more damaging to you and potentially to your children than leaving. Option 2. Radical acceptance and self-protection if exit is not possible or not your choice. You need radical acceptance. This person is a narcissist. This will never change. I cannot fix her. I cannot make her see me accurately. I cannot make her care about my needs or feelings. With that acceptance, you build self-protection. Stop seeking her validation or approval. You'll never get it genuinely. Stop explaining yourself or defending yourself. She's not operating in good faith. Stop expecting empathy or reciprocity. She's not capable of providing it. Maintain separate financial accounts if possible. Maintain relationships with friends and family outside the marriage. Develop your own support system. Consider individual therapy to process the psychological damage and build resilience. This is not a solution. This is damage mitigation. You're accepting living in a psychologically toxic environment and trying to minimize how much it destroys you. Option 3. Couples therapy usually fails. Couples therapy with a narcissist typically does not work because therapy requires both people operating in good faith, being willing to examine their own behavior, and working toward mutual improvement. Narcissists use therapy as another battleground. They perform for the therapist. They manipulate the narrative to make you the problem. They use things you share in therapy as weapons outside of therapy. The only scenario where therapy might help, the therapist recognizes the narcissistic dynamic and works primarily with you to either improve your coping or recognize that exit is necessary. But even this is difficult because many therapists are not trained in narcissistic dynamics and will try to apply standard relationship therapy frameworks that don't work in these contexts. Final thoughts: female narcissism is real, it's common, and it's devastating to the men who get entangled with narcissistic women. It's not about her being difficult or high maintenance. It's about a fundamental personality structure that makes genuine partnership impossible. The core characteristics: lack of empathy, entitlement, grandiosity, superficiality, poor emotional regulation, hypersensitivity to criticism, all 6 must be present consistently. The additional characteristics: jealousy, gaslighting, disloyalty, sadism, meanness, manipulation, lack of genuine relationships, these amplify the damage. Gaslighting deserves special attention because it's the tactic that does the most psychological damage by destroying your ability to trust your own perception of reality. That recognition is the first step. If you're seeing these patterns, if you're being gaslit, if you're constantly doubting yourself and walking on eggshells and trying harder to satisfy someone who is never satisfied, you're likely dealing with a narcissist. Your options are limited. Exit is best. Radical acceptance and self-protection if exit isn't possible. Couples therapy usually fails. What you cannot do: fix her, change her, love her into becoming empathic, make her see you accurately. These are not possible because narcissism is not a choice or a behavior. It's a personality structure that she would need to recognize and work to change herself. And most narcissists never do that work. Protect yourself. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If you feel like you're going crazy, you're probably being gaslit. If you feel like nothing you do is ever enough, you're probably dealing with someone who will never be satisfied. And recognize you deserve better than a relationship where you're psychologically attacked, where your reality is denied, where your needs are irrelevant, where you're valued only for what you provide rather than who you are. Drop a comment if this resonated. Have you dealt with a narcissistic partner? What were the signs you missed initially? Subscribe because this channel will continue providing diagnostic information that helps men recognize toxic patterns before they're destroyed by them. Stay aware, stay self-protective, and never doubt your own reality just because someone confident tells you you're wrong.